Hello, and welcome to my screencast on using Content Manager with Elasticsearch to aggregate and review retention data. To start, I've got a instance of Content Manager installed with a copy of the restore demonstration dataset that gets shipped with the original source media for Content Manager. I've mounted that dataset, and you can see I've got in this dataset about 357 records. What I want to do today, though, is I want to run a search for all of the records in this data set that could be destroyed at any point in time. So not a particular date range, but I'm going to just pick date to destroy, and I'm going to pick a date range from 1/1/1900 to 1/1 of 2050. And when I run that, I get a subset, or 177 records, that are eligible for destruction. Normally, on the back end of such a system, if I go and I inspect Elasticsearch, so here I'm running the Elasticsearch head via a Chrome extension, pointing to the Elasticsearch cluster that supports my Content Manager instance. If I go ahead and narrow down to just the Content Manager instance for this data set, you can see here is the demo DB of 45. It has a total of 357 documents inside of that Elasticsearch index. If I look at the actual metadata, I can see that the record properties that are stored within this index are all of the standard ones that are created as Content Manager fills it up with content. There are lots of problems with how this is set up, especially from an aggregation perspective, because most of these fields are defined as texts and not keywords, which inhibits our ability to actually perform aggregations. You cannot aggregate upon a text field. So what I want to do when I say I want to look at retention data is I want to be able to aggregate on retention fields, such as the destruction date, for instance, as well as the owner location, who owns that record, so that I can generate a visualization of year-over-year ownership destruction of records. Well, I can't do that out of the box because A, I don't have any fields here that are available for the destruction or disposal tasks, and B, the fields that are exposed are not of the correct types. I can't aggregate on ownership, for instance, because it's of type text. So what I want to do is I'm going to reindex everything, but I'm not going to reindex everything into the out-of-the-box or the standard way that this is done. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go over to the client. I'm going to run or at least copy the search string out of my disposition process. So here's all the records to be destroyed. I copy that to my clipboard. I go back over to the Elasticsearch reindexing function and I paste that in. So I'm going to reindex all of these records. But the trick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the protocol tab and I'm going to change the index name to retention. Now, this is fine. This works. If I go ahead and click OK, notice there's no other index here. I only see one index. There would be another one right here on the screen if there was one with that title, but there's not. So if I just run this, it should process 177 records, the number of records that are in my search result, and we'll see in just a moment, it did process whatever that adds up to. It looks like 177. If I go back to the Elasticsearch head and I hit refresh, you can see there should now be, there it is. There's my retention one. So even though I have an ongoing index for routine work, I have now, via the client, created a new one that I can work with and I can do lots of stuff with. If I take a look at the metadata, though, since I did not define a mapping up front, the properties are generated at time of submission. So when the record is submitted, if there is not a field there, then it will generate this in the mapping automatically. And that's what's happened is as Content Manager, as I ran this function and each one of these was processed and the information was transmitted to Elasticsearch, the mapping was generated on the fly. So I'm going to have the same problem here. If I go over to Kibana and I point to that particular index pattern. So here, let me just remove out what I had before. So here I'm going to create a new indexing pattern, and I'm going to call this one HPECM_45_retention. And I can see it did find it, but note, I still only have a date created and date registered field. There's no other fields available. That's, okay. Why is it not letting me save it? Time filter name is required. Oh, I don't want to use it. Here, Kibana shows me that I will not be able to use owner name as an aggregation. This is the aggregation column. I can't aggregate upon it, which means when I go and try to generate a visualization, let's say not a heat map, but instead a horizontal bar chart for all of the retention data, when I go to actually pick the ownership, I can't only pick the year. I can't pick the name. Well, that really is not fun if you are trying to, I don't know what this is doing now. Why is this giving me no results? Oh, originated from, I didn't want that. I want owner. I'm sorry, owner location. So here, this title doesn't really make any sense to me. I don't need the number, I need the name. So this went wrong with the record mapping that was generated on the fly. Instead of this being a text, I need this to actually be a string. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just delete this index that I was just created a moment ago, and I'm going to instead now go into Postman, and I'm going to use Postman to update the Elasticsearch index such that there is a mapping in play before I run the search. And here, what we can do is I can go ahead and I've got a kind of a pre-created one here where I have no index at the moment. So what I'm going to do is post to the index a new mapping. So I'm going to put, yeah, it's a put, but not just a record. I need actually to have a mapping in here. And then I can add into the mapping whatever my field is going to be. So if I go back over to the Elasticsearch index and I take a look at the fields that are already there, I can just copy what I want. So here in this one, I want owner location, and I want to fix that. So I'm going to copy that into there, but instead of a keyword, I'm going to do text. I'm sorry, instead of text, I'm going to do keyword. And then second, instead of for a destroy date, actually, this is from the other data set. So we're going to go ahead and just leave this for now. I'm going to make owner location a keyword. Send this. That should, I need to take out that comma. Mappings, maybe. There we go. So now it's recreated by just the mere fact that I've posted this. This mapping, it's created the index, so I can come back into here, hit refresh. I'll see the index. There's 0 documents inside of it. If I go back into Content Manager and re-index yet again, this time making sure I'm going into this same index, which at this point does exist because I just used Postman to do that. And when it indexes all of these 177 records into this index, which it's done now, I should be able to hit refresh, and there I can see all 177 are in there. If I go and I look at any given record, for instance, let's say this one right here, that's unique identifier 294. If I go and I query this retention index for Yuri 294, and I take a look at the actual JSON that is submitted in the index, you can see it still has the authority name. It's still in their exact same value. It's got all the information that it needs in the destroy date. And now if I go to Kibana and I refresh this index, so here is my retention index. I pin that, refresh it. I can now see that ownership is owner name is aggregatable, meaning if I go and visualize this, I can do a horizontal bar chart across on the retention index. I'm going to create a split series aggregating upon the ownership name, which is new. There it is. And go ahead and just play that, and notice now I've got the names, the authority, production unit, Brian McBinary, etc. This is just a quick visual, but hopefully it gives you an understanding of the power that's inside of Elasticsearch and how you can easily index into any index via the client at any time. Just change the name of what the index name is, and then by adding in your own mapping, you can really create some powerful dashboards for your whole implementation. Thanks.